Hello, hello. Welcome back to Characters. My name is Laura. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are joined today in conversation by Laura Arden. She is a creature actor and an intimacy coordinator. So we're talking about both of those very cool roles. We're talking about being multifaceted in Hollywood, self-advocacy, and above all else, Laura is one of my dearest friends. We met in college, we've known each other for over 10 years, and we've seen each other through so many phases of life. So it was so special to have her join me for this today. And I'm so thankful to have the opportunity to share a bit of her story with you. Wherever you're listening to the show, make sure you're subscribed or following the podcast. Subscribing to Characters is the easiest way to make sure that we can continue having these really fabulous conversations. All of my socials will also be linked below if you'd like to get in touch elsewhere. And the video versions of this show are available on YouTube and Spotify. With that, let's get into it. I hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome to Characters.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here. It's so cute.
Thank you. You were saying beforehand that you don't get to often present yourself as yourself on camera.
No, it's like I notice I'm way more nervous for this than like anything else I do. Because, yeah, I'm not used to I'm a creature or I'm a different human being on cameras.
For people to kind of get a sense of where you are today, let's talk about like how did you get into acting?
I, as a kid, was really, really shy. My piano teacher and voice teacher had this joke that she would tell everyone that when she first met me, I would hide under the piano because I was so shy and terrified to speak to people. And so I think it was 8th grade that there was a school play or something. I was kind of getting into musicals. And I was like, you know what? I want to be on stage because it terrifies me. And I just like want to get over that fear. So that's why I started doing it. And then I kind of fell in love with it. It still terrified me, but it was kind of like exhilarating and thrilling. And I was like, oh, this is great. And then I just kept doing it throughout like middle school and high school. And I kind of just became like obsessed with it and maybe a little addicted, but not necessarily in an unhealthy way. And then I majored in it in college. While I was in college, I did a acting conservatory program in Chicago during summer and winter breaks. So I was just constantly in school. And then I moved to Chicago after graduation, did storefront theater there, and then finally moved to LA.
Yeah. There was a time in college where you thought you wanted to do theater primarily, right?
Yes, yeah. There was a long time, I think, that I really wanted to do theater. I thought it was somehow like, I don't know if wholesome is the right word, but like more pure or something to do theater. Like I didn't want to like sell out and do film, or that was my way of thinking at the time and kind of what I had been like fed at acting school and by the people around me. And then I realized that that was ridiculous. And I also just really like film. I like being on set. I like the minuscule how acting on film can be a lot smaller and more grounded, more human in some ways than theater. I mean, theater has its own special set of things, but yeah, I kind of fell in love with that more, or ended up falling in love with that more. Also, it's a lot easier to make a living on film versus theater.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you say on film gets to be a little bit more human. The acting gets to be more human because you are now a creature actor.
Yeah.
How did you get into creature acting? Because I will tell my brief story of like, I remember you telling me that you were going to take a class and I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like I could not picture creature acting. How'd you get into it?
Most people, when I say it, think that I actually make the creatures. I am the actual creature. I kind of got into it because I met someone who was doing it and I thought it was the coolest thing what he was doing. And I was like, how do I get that job? And I started talking to makeup artists and just collaborating with them and being like, I would really love to try doing some creatures, wearing the prosthetics, what it's like sitting for that long. And I started doing it with a couple different makeup artists. And they were like, you're really good at just sitting for 8 hours, which apparently is like half the job. And from there, nothing really happened. It was really just a fun thing for a while, like cool photos. And then probably in 2021 or 22, I finally got an audition for a creature in a feature film. And after auditioning, I was like, I could do this better if I had someone teaching me how to do this, because I'd never been trained in that kind of movement acting. So right after I auditioned for it, I found a creature trainer, Andy Norris, and she's also a creature actor. And she started training me. And a week later, I actually booked the job, even though I didn't have her yet. So I booked that job. She helped me like with that job. And then I was training with her twice a week, like for creatures, which was creature movement and just overall fitness. And it's a lot about like the isolation of your body. So I was training for that, and then I just started filming like random videos of me up against a white wall in all black doing weird creature movements. I made a video reel, and then once people kind of started being like, that's the girl that does creatures, I just started booking a lot, and I've been booking creatures consistently ever since, which is great because that's not how regular acting works at all.
Okay, wait. So when you say creature training, is it you're saying isolated movements? Like, what are you doing for the hour or so that you're with your trainer?
So we would work a lot on like building my core and my upper body because that's where I'm weakest. But we do a lot of isolated movements. So if you're on all fours on the ground and then you pick up an arm and hold it, so you're strengthening your core, but you're also isolating parts of your body and practicing like moving with only part of your body and keeping the rest of it still, that kind of stuff, because then you can apply that to things like zombies or other creatures that have a very like specific kind of movement. So I feel like body isolation was a big one. And then depending on if I just needed to work on general fitness at the time, or if I had an audition or was currently working on a role, she would work on that role with me, which was really cool because what I find fascinating about creatures is I do a lot of horror specific creatures, not all of them, but some. And with creatures in horror, they usually represent something. So then you kind of get to think of it from that view of like, how do I embody this thing, whether it be depression or an eating disorder or whatever the creature is supposed to represent.
Wait, that's so interesting. I hadn't thought that deeply, but you're right that the creature is supposed to represent something, like some challenge.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. I'm thinking of, God, we were just talking about shows inspired by video games. That Pedro Pascal show that he's like,
Last of Us?
Yes.
It was
yes.
Wait, it's Last of Us.
Very,
right?
very creature heavy.
Yes.
Very creature heavy. And that one's a funny one too, because it's like they're obstacles, but they are also, like these visual reminders of the world before this disease. Like, so interesting.
It's so wild because I actually took a random class at Chapel Hill. Like, it was an extracurricular like choice thing, and it was an English class that was the study of creatures across like creatures in literature across different cultures, and each week or month, I don't know, we had studied a different creature, and it was like vampires, chupacabra, like all these different things. I think ghosts, I don't know, but it was, I will never forget. I always remember that class, and I was obsessed with it. And looking back, I'm like, no wonder. But also didn't know I was going to utilize that fun extracurricular class in my actual career. But here we are.
I love that. I love that. I took so many random classes in college that
So
every once in a while I get like a flashback of like, wow. Like, I took a class my freshman year at Chapel Hill that was called Introduction to Islam. And I think it was maybe like cross-posted with like an art credit or something like that, and I was getting an art history minor, and I know so much about the Islamic religion that I had no idea is like deep stored in my mind. And like I did not grow up practicing. I didn't grow up knowing any of it, but it just like comes to me at random times, and I'm like, wow, good for me, like for just like storing this. Let's talk a little bit about, I guess, the early stages of starting to book creatures. Like, what have you noticed in these last few years as you have been continuing to perform as a creature? Like, what is getting more interesting about your job over time?
I'm definitely getting better at it. There's like certain things I think as an actor too, as any performer, that the more you do it, the more you're like, I have to have my little bag of like things I
Yeah.
bring to set, or like, and it helps you show up being more professional. For example, I learned, this is so random and scientific, but a huge part of creature acting. I learned that my skin takes to the glue they use, the Prozaid, really, really well. So well that it's incredibly hard to get off. The makeup artist on a Marvel shoot actually figured this out, and they told me, they were like, okay, tell every other makeup artist that does prosthetics on your face to do a cup of water and add a drop of Prozaid. And usually it's like a whole cup of Prozaid to do it.
Wow.
And so I would tell other makeup artists this, and they're like, they thought I was exaggerating or out of my mind crazy. And sure enough, a couple of my makeup artists who are now my close friends are like, no, you're serious. Like, I can only do a couple drops of Prozaid, like basically in water. And like, your skin just loves prosthetics. And I was like, guess I was made for this. But also, it's like good to know how your skin reacts to certain things, especially as a creature actor. I always bring, I forget what it's called, but it's a skin saver, this foam that you put on your face or your whole body to make it easier to get off the prosthetics. And you just like put all these things in your toolkit and learn like, this is what I need for my face. This is what I need to like stretch before and after. Because a lot of times on set, you're one, physically active, and two, set is really cold. So like making sure you warm up your body, because that's another thing I learned, where early on I didn't care about that as much, and my body would get really sore because it wasn't warmed up in a really cold environment.
This is so interesting. I feel like I'm learning so much of things I had no idea were
You
problems.
you don't think about it until you're actually doing it, and you're like, oh, I should think about this and this and this to make my life and everyone else's life easier.
Yeah. I imagine it also makes you more professional. Like you just know your way around this kind of role so well at this point.
It's interesting because I've been doing normal acting, I guess we'll call it, forever. But for whatever reason, when I show up as a creature, there's this confidence that I don't necessarily have in regular acting. Like, there's something about it where it just feels like right in my body, and I am confident that I know what I'm doing. That just feels really wonderful, but also interesting that that's the thing. Like, that's the thing for me that has really, that clicks easier.
Yeah.
Um,
Wait, that's so interesting. Tell me more about this. So, creature acting has made you more confident in your body. What has creature acting taught you about yourself in general beyond that?
so some of the roles I do involve speaking. Some speak normal English. Some, I've done one that has a completely different language. And then I've done a lot that are more grunts and noises. And I have realized that there is such a freedom in basically being able to go nonverbal, and use random grunts and noises, if anything, to express yourself. And there's just this, like, it feels so comfortable to me. I'm diagnosed with autism and ADHD. And so for me, there was just this freedom. It was really healing as I discovered what was happening, where I was like, oh, and that was maybe why I felt so much more comfortable and confident in it, where I didn't have to think about the words, like things that were harder for me growing up or just as a person to like be in society and think about. I didn't have to think about anymore as a creature. I could just be. And there was something so freeing in that, and use like noises and stuff, which as a person with autism, like how I stim and stuff is kind of like that in some ways. So it felt very freeing.
Oh my gosh, I love that. That's really thoughtful and like really reflective that you can take something from a role that is so different from who you truly are and like apply it to your life.
Yeah, it
That
is
there's a
weird.
lesson.
And it's weird because I don't think of it as different from who I am in a lot of ways. Like, for whatever reason, creatures sometimes I connect to more than human beings.
Wait, really? Tell me
I
more.
think so. I don't know. Like, now that you say that, I was like, I feel like, I don't know. Like, when I can get into the movement of it, it just feels right for me. And people that know me, especially like my sister and people who grew up around me, are like, that tracks. Because I would do, like, growing up, I would just be weird. Um, and like make weird noises and stuff so that it felt very natural to me. And I think people who are neurodivergent, can end up spending a lot of your life being like, how do I fit in this room? How do I act normal? I grew up with a lot of like kids making fun of me or thinking that what I was doing was weird or saying I was awkward compared to all of the other kids. And so to go into something not feeling like, I think I spent a lot of my life growing up feeling very awkward in my body. And being a creature was the first time where I was like, not only don't I feel awkward, but me being awkward in general is actually making this better. Like the creature is awkward. Like the creature is weird and not rhythmic oftentimes. So it lends itself to being able to feel more comfy in your body if you are an awkward person.
Wait, this is so
At least that's my experience.
interesting. This is so interesting. Do you have a favorite creature? Like, is there something that you're watching on TV or like in film that you're like, wow, look at those movements. Like, look at what they add to the scene.
That's a good question. I have like clocked a few. There was one character, and I forget what she was called, but in I think The Witcher season 1 or 2, not the recent one. But it's kind of a play on Beauty and the Beast, that episode, and she's basically this creature in the ceiling, and like pops out and crawls around in the ceiling. And I just really love that. I also love as an actor, like probably my favorite roles to have played are ones that I get to do both, where I get to be a creature and a normal human being. I've done that a couple times, and that definitely I like doing both.
Why do you think you like doing both?
I still oftentimes find being a human, acting wise, a little harder than being a creature, but for me I do like that challenge. And that was what I originally fell in love with, was normal acting. And then I love being a creature. So I was in a film called The Mannequin where I was a 1970s model. And so I got to have a couple scenes of me as a model, as a human being. And then I get murdered and flash forward to the future where my character is now a ghost and goes through this like whole journey. And she's missing something basically from her past. And that was one of my favorite roles I got to play because I very much got to be like creature with legs cut off, a lot of contortion work in that one, and then like normal actor model kind of thing.
I love that. Switching gears a little bit, but not entirely. So you're talking here about being two different kinds of actor, where you are a human actor and a creature actor. You've also done a lot on set that is not acting.
Yes,
So tell me
yes.
about that.
So I'm also an intimacy coordinator. I've like dabbled in all kinds of things on set, producing, writing, directing, PA, even makeup artist occasionally. But I have recently done a fair amount of intimacy coordination on a few features and a lot of verticals, which are a big thing right now.
Yeah. Verticals, like the things that we're like the short little videos on our For You pages that are
Yes.
shot like film.
So yeah, they're shot vertically. They're kind of like mini soap operas. They basically like get you in the first couple episodes and then there's a paywall that you have to pay into it. And that is very big
Yeah.
right now.
I was telling you, I feel like I'm getting a lot of them right now served to me.
That was interesting that you said that because that makes sense because they've gotten a lot bigger the past year, I'd say.
Yeah. How did you get into intimacy coordination?
That's a good question. So I've done a lot of work as an actor, especially when I first got here in horror, that had a lot of intimacy. Not a lot, but like some intimacy in it. And so I have my own experience of feeling taken advantage in that way, especially as a young actor who just moved here, who felt very comfortable in their body, but that was kind of used against me, and I didn't have anyone supporting me through it or talking me through it or giving me all my options or being like, hey, actually, we can edit this scene a little to do this, etc. So that's a little bit of my background. And then I started to learn what an intimacy coordinator was right before the pandemic. And I was actually a body double for Patty Harrison in HBO's Made for Love. And when I was her body double, I was working with a couple intimacy coordinators at the time. And I just love that it basically gives the actor or double or whoever someone who can advocate for them, especially if you don't feel like you can advocate for yourself on set, and they check in with you and make it so it's crazy like what an intimacy coordinator actually does that you don't think could be necessary, of like just having deodorant on hand, like having a toothbrush so that you can quickly brush your teeth or have some Listerine before kissing someone. And that makes everything on set just a lot more comfortable so they can think about it and the actor doesn't have to. But on that HBO set, I was like, this is really cool. I want to do this. Then the pandemic happened. So I still was like really interested in it. And then I guess about a year and a half ago is when I really started taking some more classes and starting to get on set with some projects and intimacy coordinate.
Yeah. I love asking you about this because I feel like it is something that is a relatively new role in the sense that we're like hearing about it so much more as the public. Like I feel like people are so much more comfortable talking about intimacy coordinators on sets, like in, you know, talk shows, late night shows, whatever. Like people are very upfront with using an intimacy coordinator because it's this badge of like having an ethical set that you need to have one.
And it's become normal for actors to kind of be like, okay, is there an intimacy coordinator? And if it's not, an actor usually knows that's a red flag at this point, versus not very long ago, that was not normal.
Yeah. I love hearing people's like experience with that because as an actor, I imagine like no matter what, it's weird to be filming an intimacy scene on camera. Like I'm sure there is some level of that is uncomfortable, whether or not you're like fully in character. So having someone to advocate for you is like beyond important.
Very much so. And sometimes it is because you're on a set that may be trying to add things that you're not comfortable, but sometimes it's just making things less awkward or feel less awkward. I did a kissing scene for a film in the pandemic and there was no intimacy coordinator. And I feel like both of us were just really nervous about it because I think there's this thing, if someone else can guide a conversation and open up a conversation between both people, I think it puts everyone at ease, because for both of us, I think we were both thinking about, am I making him uncomfortable? He's like, am I making her uncomfortable because it's COVID and we're about to kiss? And it's like all this stuff that we're worrying about. I was like, oh no, does my breath smell? Am I sweating? Like I'm thinking about all these things. When an intimacy coordinator is there, you don't have to think. You can just give that all to them and do your actual job, which is acting.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And we were talking earlier about like being professional in the sense of, as a creature actor, you know all of these little like quirks about the job now for you.
Yes.
And I have to say, like with intimacy coordination in your back pocket as an actor, I feel like that also makes you so much easier on set. Like it must make the whole experience better for everyone.
I think it helps for sure. And sometimes a production doesn't quite need it. It might be lower budget, or it might just be where they don't quite need an intimacy coordinator, but there is a more even emotionally intimate scene, which I think people don't realize, that you can use intimacy coordinators for more than just physical intimacy. But I've been on sets as an actor where it actually just makes everyone feel more comfortable knowing I have the background of an intimacy coordinator, which I find interesting. Yeah. But Yeah, and it definitely does help of like it puts a little bit of pressure on you, I think, but I've definitely gotten used to that and I like helping on set in that way and just being like, okay, I have to pull my intimacy coordinator hat out even though I'm on set as an actor. And there was one short I worked on where it gave way to a really wonderful conversation where they were like, Laura's an intimacy coordinator, like, do you mind if we ask you like what questions would you ask or how would you do this? And it basically just opened up a conversation between everyone, specifically me and the other actor, and it really helped us go emotionally deeper into the character and feel safer to go there emotionally. And it was honestly just a really healing experience for all of us because at the end of the day, I think one of the reasons actors want to act is because it connects us to who we are as human beings. And so on set, we were all going through something very similar to what the script was talking about. In this example, it was heartbreak. And having this open-ended conversation about it just made us feel safer to do the scene, but also opened us up to each other more emotionally. And we established a sense of trust there. And it just was like one of the easiest, more intimate scenes that I've ever done because we did that, then let it go. And then an hour later, we filmed the scene. And it was just so natural and easy and like not uncomfortable like it usually is because you don't know this person and and you're about to be very emotionally and or physically intimate with them. It was really, I loved it. It was really beautiful.
Wait, that's so interesting. And that's like such a sweet story.
Yeah, it was honestly, yeah, we were all going through very similar and different like heartbreak stories, just really, and it was like very heavy and very, but it was so helpful to honestly just like cry with each other before we filmed the scene. But I think that's why people act is to feel that human emotion and to connect to that and to make something that other people going through that can connect to.
Can you, as a consumer, ever tell when there's not an intimacy coordinator? Like, do you see it on the back end?
Like if I'm watching something,
Yeah.
I don't know if I would be able to tell.
Yeah.
Because I've heard horror stories from actors about intimacy coordinators. So like nothing is perfect.
Totally.
So I don't think I could necessarily tell from watching something on screen just because it is something unlike a makeup artist where their work is supposed to be visible and an intimacy coordinator's work is kind of theoretically in some ways invisible.
Yeah.
Minus the actual like choreography and actual intimacy. So I do feel like it would be hard to tell, but what's really easy to tell is when I ask actors' experiences on set.
Yeah, that's fair. And that was a hard question, so I'm sorry I threw it at you, but I'm thinking of that film, Anora. Very famously on the press circuit, they spoke a lot about not having an intimacy coordinator and like defending that decision.
Which I found interesting. I would have to look into that situation. I'm not sure how that was possible.
Yeah, I don't know anything really about it.
Yeah, I was like kind of confused by it, and I did get a lot of questions about it at that time. They were like, "Did you see?" And a lot of people just talking about it on set. And I was intimacy coordinating at that time that came out on some project, and they were just like, "Just so you know, we're really glad you're here." Aww. I was like, "Oh, thank you." They're like, "That seemed like we would want all our actors." The only thing in that situation with Anora is, again, it sounds like there's missing information via that article. But if the one actress said no to an intimacy coordinator, that one actress actor doesn't speak for the rest of the actors on set. So that's the other thing. Like, you should still be able to provide an intimacy coordinator for other actors. It also becomes an issue when it's like one person says they don't want one and then all the other actors are then made to feel like, oh, I don't need it. And that's not a healthy place either.
Yeah. Do you see things changing with either of these roles that we've talked about, intimacy coordination or creature acting, in this new era of streaming and verticals and just like the way that people are consuming content right now? Like, how is your job changing?
Oh gosh. I know everyone's really scared of AI right now, and I see why. And I see how that could affect things just because the creatures that are going to be practical, I think are going to be practical. There's a lot of people still who want practical effects creatures, and a lot of media that lends itself to practical effects creatures. However, the past several years, there's been a lot of CGI creatures and now most likely AI creatures. I am unsure if that's going to take away creature acting work or if the AI creatures were going to be CGI creatures anyway. That is like unclear to me as of now.
Yeah.
And then for intimacy coordination, I do feel like since it's such a new line of work and new to sets, especially non-union sets, most of the verticals are non-union and they all pretty much have intimacy coordinators. So that's awesome. But I definitely see, because it is a newer line of work, it's evolving a lot over time in a short amount of time. And it's cool to see that happening and everyone learning from our mistakes. Like, I went to an intimacy coordinator convention last year online, and it was fascinating listening to everyone's different stories and what people who've even been in the business for a while now have learned and continue to learn on set and in workshops. So I do think intimacy coordination specifically will continue to evolve.
Yeah. I feel like people also expect it at this point as consumers. Like, it's something that we have become so used to hearing about that when there is a situation of a set like really defending the decision to not have an intimacy coordinator,
Yeah.
like people are outraged reasonably. Like,
Yeah, it's
we're
become the norm.
yeah, we're living in a time where like people want to know what they are consuming is coming from a healthy environment.
Yes, and I think that's a good thing. And I also think with intimacy coordination, I learned at that convention, it's easy to think of intimacy, even as an intimacy coordinator. It's easy to think of intimacy coordination as this very, almost like very structured kind of thing that you're helping them with physical, emotional intimacy. You're helping with different kinds of undergarments and making sure they have mints and all the things and walking them through conversations of consent, et cetera, et cetera. But at the convention, I was like, wow, this can actually be such an artistic career as well. This one intimacy coordinator taught us where he does storyboards, and he actually storyboards intimacy. So he takes little figurines and choreographs them and then takes these beautiful photos of them. And that wouldn't work for every single project. Yeah, it depends on the project if you then actually share that storyboard with the director or it's just for you, for your vision. But I found that fascinating. I was like, wow, this is so artistic and beautiful, the way a lot of these intimacy coordinators are starting to view scenes of physical and emotional intimacy and choreograph them and really like have very different kinds of choreography and intimacy that we've not necessarily seen on screen before.
You mentioned intimacy coordinators can be used for both emotional and physical scenes. How has that impacted your relationships in your personal life?
Oh, in a lot of ways, honestly. I think it's definitely made myself more aware of things. Like, even in an intimacy coordinator class, someone presented something. It was something about asking someone, can I have a bite of your sandwich? And this girl was actually talking about her partner. She was like, can I have a bite of my sandwich? And she was like, now I've restructured it to, how do you feel about me having a bite of your sandwich? Because then it gives the person, like, at first it sounds kind of ridiculous, but in reality, it gives the person the opportunity to say no, or to say, like, you know what, like, I want this half, or you can have that half, or you can have, it opens up the conversation more. And that's such a specific, like, sandwich thing. But when it's at deeper levels of intimacy, of like, how do you feel about going to this party, or how do you feel about going to couples therapy with me, or something like that, instead of a more direct question that can make the person feel a little trapped in that, of like, oh yeah, you can have my sandwich, like, because it feels like not great to say no. So having more open-ended questions, I learned from that class. I was like, oh, interesting. It started to make me think differently about how I approach conversations and disagreements and different kinds of communication. And I think overall, that's how it has helped me in both physical and emotional intimacy. I have better awareness of boundaries and consent, and can then apply that. And the more you do it, the less sterile it feels. Because I think there's this fear that if we like consent and talking about things, like there's that whole consent can be sexy, which is true. It's just getting past, there's a learning curve for everything. And at first it might feel a little sterile that you're like, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about this? But then it just feels a lot easier. So yeah, I feel like I'm finally getting to a place where things feel easier.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still going to be hard parts of every
of course
relationship and conversation, but it's a little easier to communicate with people, I think.
Yeah. Gosh, the way that's so interesting, because framing a question as like, how do you feel about X is softer, and it's also so much less, I don't know, like expectant perhaps.
Yes, that's what it is.
Yeah. Oh my God, great tip. I love that.
Once she said that, this is like a year ago, I was like, this is great. I'm going to do this everywhere. And in text, you're able to practice things in text a little bit more easier and smoother than in real life at first. And that was for me, like I started doing it via text first versus in real life conversations, because for some reason, for me, that's social anxiety. But it's really helpful because it's also open-ended, like you were saying, where the person can explore how they feel in that moment. They might not even know, but it gives them a chance to be like, oh, how do I feel about this?
Yeah.
Instead of instantly answering yes or no.
Oh my God, that's such a good tip.
I was obsessed when I heard that. I was like, this is great.
That's so good. Going back a little bit, I guess, you shared earlier that creature acting has impacted you on a personal level and like giving you more confidence and like allowing you to explore different parts of yourself. Has intimacy coordination impacted your creature acting?
That's a really interesting question. One of the ways, I'm sure I'm going to walk out of here and like an hour later be like, oh, and this and this and this. But definitely one of the ways is advocating for myself. I think, and I've talked to other intimacy coordinators that really relate to this, and I think human beings in general probably relate to this, where it's much easier to advocate for other people than to advocate for ourselves. And there have been times where I've even felt hypocritical, where I get off set and I've advocated for actors all day long, and it might have been a harder day on set where I really had to advocate for actors. And then I get home and something happens and I feel like I don't advocate for myself at all. And I'm like, what would this actor think of me when I'm like encouraging us all to advocate for actors on set, and then I go home and I do that. There was a time where I was a little hard on myself with that, especially at the beginning of intimacy coordination, because again, there was like more of a separation of, it was much easier to advocate for actors, much harder to advocate for myself. And over time, I feel that gap is like slowly closing, even though it is still hard to sometimes. Yeah. I think most people can probably relate to it being hard to advocate for yourself. But as a creature actor, I think it's a huge plus if you can advocate for yourself, because you're almost a combination of an actor and a stunt person, and you're being put through pretty crazy stuff. Sometimes I've been in lakes at 4 a.m, like swimming in them, freezing, and basically just prosthetics, and having prosthetics on you, even telling people my mixture of Prozac and water is advocating for myself in a way. And even bringing something to set like the Skin Saver is advocating for myself. So I think that is the big thing for how intimacy coordination helps creature acting and acting, I think in general, is being able to be confident in speaking up for yourself, because it's definitely something I've struggled with, specifically with creature acting.
That's a great answer. I do think, as someone who doesn't act in my real life, it is hard to advocate for yourself. And I don't think that's specific to even intimate relationships, as we were saying, like emotionally intimate or whatever it may be. Like, I think advocating for yourself is always going to be hard because there is this push in whatever situation you're in that you are like challenging something, right? Whether it's physical, emotional, whatever. Of course it's going to be hard, and it's always going to be like a learning experience.
And especially as any kind of actor, you're on set and you're like, I'm so grateful for this opportunity. Right. I don't know if I'll ever get, like, there's part of your actor brain that's like, I don't know if I'll ever get an opportunity again. And I'm a very go with the flow person. And I, as a creature actor, I'm just used to putting up with a lot, especially physically, as far as being cold or hot or uncomfortable. I'm used to that. I'm cool with that. But I've even been called out by makeup artists and other people where they're like, please let me know. They're like, if it's too much. And I had a makeup artist be like, you're a trooper. She's like, you don't always need to be a trooper. Like you don't always have to take the level that you're taking. Yeah. It doesn't mean they're going to fire you or never use you again. There's probably an easy compromise to make it easier for production and the actor. Yeah. It could be as simple as getting you a blanket. Like, but some of us are fearful or just feel uncomfortable even advocating that much.
It's funny that you say, even in real life, like the challenges that we have with advocacy and like being on a set and saying, I should be grateful for this opportunity. I don't want to make too much of a problem of my self-advocacy. Sometimes in real life, I'm kind of like, am I advocating for myself too much? Like, should I just step away and like be quiet and let these people do whatever or say whatever so that I can get through this hurdle or challenge or whatever it is? And I think that's also challenging. Like, is there a point where you are advocating too much and just being difficult? And like, I have a very hard time finding that line for myself.
Definitely. Yeah, because life does involve some flexibility. But at the same time, like, I want everyone to be able to advocate for themselves. And then I think there's also this added layer that one of the things that's hard about advocating for yourself is we all want people to like us. And I think there's this thing, at least for me, half of the reason why it's hard to get myself to speak up sometimes is because I'm like, well, I don't know, they might not like me anymore. Or like, it sounds ridiculous, but I think we all have that still, especially on set at a job you're so grateful to have. You're like, well, I want this director to like me. I want this production crew to like me. I want them to bring me back. I can't ask for too much. And I mean, finding that line wherever it is, and it might be different in each environment.
Absolutely. Is there a type of creature that you still want to play?
That's a good question. So almost a year ago, I had a makeup artist on set ask me if I could play any creature that I haven't yet, what would it be? And I said an evil pixie. And then she made me into a evil pixie for Monsterpalooza, which is this huge monster convention. Amazing. The makeup artist is Casey Mussman. She's amazing, but she literally made my dreams come true. Like, we were on set and she was making me into a monster the past 2 or 3 days. And at the end of set, she asked me that. And I was like, wait, are you serious? You're going to make me into an evil pixie? She's like, yes. And I would love to like play that evil pixie like in an actual project, because I just got to do it for that one day. And it was so fun. And I felt like more myself than anything ever before. I did a full interview with some influencer, I think, came up and interviewed me, and he was asking questions to different people at the convention all day long. And he asked me questions and I stayed in character, so I answered in complete like hisses and like just as an evil fairy. And I swear I was like, that's the best interview I've ever done. Like, I love that. I was like, I felt like it was so much easier for whatever reason to communicate with this human via hisses answering these questions than as a human. I think I would have been so nervous answering the questions right off the bat with no preparation or no knowledge that this was going to happen if he approached me as a person. Yeah. But as a creature, I was like, this is great. I feel comfy.
That's so interesting. Do you feel any pressure to like choose one role on a set now that you have deep experience as an actor, as an intimacy coordinator, and you were sharing like you've done plenty of other things on sets as well? Like, do you feel any pressure as you were progressing in one lane to just pick it?
Not really. I don't think so. I think there's stories we can tell ourselves where like it's better to like focus, and I think that's a story that was told to people in the industry for a very long time. And a couple of decades ago, that was true. Like people, I think I've heard from other artists, like people took you less seriously if you were doing too many things, if you were an actor, director, actor, producer, or whatever. Versus now, I was just at a film gathering a few weeks ago and everyone was talking about how all of us are like so multifaceted, and it makes us more interesting as human beings, but also like my intimacy coordination helps my creature acting, and my creature acting helps my normal acting, and like and all of that probably helps me when I produce a project. I think people in the industry and in Hollywood are becoming a little more open-minded about that, about viewing people as a whole, and that they have all these different things going on than just one thing.
I love that. What do you have coming up? Can you share any teasers?
I was like, what do I have?
What's next?
I just did a really fun, like, editorial fashion shoot.
We haven't even talked about your modeling.
I know.
Oh my God. Okay.
It's not, I mean.
Can we double click into
similar.
that?
It's like similar to my other stuff.
How long have you been modeling?
Probably consistently since I moved to LA. Probably like 7-8 years. And it's definitely like changed throughout that. When I got here, I was really into bridal modeling. Like
I remember
that. I don't know why, but that is what I would book every single week, was high fashion bridal editorial. I haven't booked one of those in years. So, but even the creature like movement and stuff, it's interesting because sometimes when I do a photo shoot, people will see my Instagram before and they're like, I saw you do that cool, weird contortion thing. I saw you do creature stuff. Can you do that like here? And within like especially high fashion editorial, they'll want me to bend my body weird and do stuff like that. All these things I think help. The more you get to know yourself and the more like niche you get and specific you get, the more it helps you stand out to people, which right now in this industry is helpful.
Yeah. And I like what you said about like being multifaceted and being more accepted to be multifaceted, because I feel like that should be the norm.
Yeah.
Like, is it awful to be like, what took them so long, right? Like,
I don't know, but I completely agree. Yeah. And there's less like pigeonholing, I think, or I hope, where there used to be this thing with actors where it was like, well, don't get pigeonholed into just being a scream queen, or don't get pigeonholed into just playing the princess or whatever it is. Yeah. And now I feel like there's a little more nuance where people are starting to realize just because this person did a lot of this doesn't mean they can't do this.
Yeah. What are your weird talents on your like on your like resume, quote unquote, like that you have to give when you audition?
On my special skills section?
Your special skills.
I definitely say creature acting and like light contortion. I can do like back bends, walkovers, that kind of stuff. I know one that I put there is Dungeons and Dragons, which multiple people, it's at least a conversation starter. Yeah. The amount of times I've been in an interview for an acting job and someone's like, Dungeons and Dragons. And then I have a lot of water and underwater skills. I come from a swimming family, so I have a strong swim background, and I have used that swim background many times in specifically creature acting, I would say, but also regular acting and modeling, just being comfortable in the water. I've done some underwater modeling and like a siren mermaid creature where I had to be in a lake at 4 a.m. So yeah, I feel like those are like the big special skills I have.
No, those are good ones.
Yeah.
And it's interesting also that creature acting is like one skill, because I would also think like the grunts are their own skill. You know what I mean? But I guess that makes sense that it's a specialty.
Yeah, there's like a bunch of tiny things underneath the big umbrella of creature acting, I guess.
I love that. I love that. Laura, thank you so much for joining me. Like, this has been so much fun.
Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome, and I love seeing you.
I love seeing you too. Literally anytime. Come hang out.